Now, we want to transition to our topic regarding the ARR post that the user says they just can't take it anymore. I sent this over to Chris because I was perusing the MMORPG subreddit, and I saw this post and I thought this would be interesting for Chris because he has been talking a lot about the new player experience and the need to never like abandon going in and always kind of reviewing that and looking into that, because as the game ages, there's always going to be people coming in and having that new player experience. How does that function? How's that kind of flow? And that's why this stood out to me. Chris, why don't you go ahead and take us through it and we'll go ahead and discuss it.
So I am in the middle of Stormblood. This is my last expansion until I've made a full lap. I started in Shadowbringers as a long-time skipper. I've had a lot of fun in this game, and story has just been something I've had to hit the escape key and clear to get to the content. And so I'm very well aware of how long it takes to even speed through story as I start to complete my first full lap. And I have friends that play MMOs that I have trouble convincing them to get in because they're asked to do something really long. And it would be logical that somebody who likes this journey gets to the end game and then feels like they're done, because the expectation is such a drastic shift. Once experience is no longer your goal and you start to talk about things like Savage and all of this, it feels like a totally different game. So let's see what this person does, who simply decided to try Final Fantasy XIV and give it 40 full hours of their life, a full work week of their life. Yes, the world looks great. Skills look cool. Combat's fun for what it is. The story gets better and better. But 300 plus MSQ before you even get to the first the first expansion? And what kind of quests?
Oh, we need a crystal for the ship.
I got the crystals.
Oh, this is the wrong crystal. We need another.
I got a second crystal.
Still the wrong crystal. We need another.
I got a third crystal.
Ah, great. Thanks.
Come on, this is not good questing. You can't expect new people to sit through this only because supposedly it gets better. I quit for now. Just such a shame the new player experience is this bad. I think, first of all, what they're talking about ignores that a lot of players would go, well, it used to be 7 crystals. So they have worked on it. But
Yeah.
what's crazy is that's what it is after the work. Like it used to be more crystals. It's really hard. It's a hard ask. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of voice. I started Stormblood today, and already the sound design and the voice acting is amazing. There's echo in people's voices when they're indoors in a stone room. There's voices for a villain that I got to fight early on who doesn't appear like he's going to be somebody instrumental. And the fact that I don't remember him says he probably doesn't come back in Shadowbringers or Endwalker. And he was fully voiced. So during that cutscene, and yet there's still sections I'm reading. There's still sections that aren't voiced. There's still sections of the combat that are using things like the portrait system and stuff that was added in Endwalker. And it's still too fast for me to read. And I'm supposed to be, in theory, focusing on combat that's engaging. It's hard. It's hard. So how do you ask, how long is a good new player experience for an MMO? New World's already having to revisit theirs. They're less than 2 years old. World of Warcraft has redone their new player experience. Final Fantasy has made efforts to redo their new player experience. Guild Wars has begun adding achievement type things to help guide their new player experience. How many hours should you be willing to give a game? How many dishes do you have to eat at a restaurant before you're allowed to determine whether or not you like it?
I think Final Fantasy XIV has proved that it is a quality game. I think it's proved itself time and time again. And if the user does not want to do the initial offering of this game and post about it on the internet, they have the right to do so, but I don't care. At the end of the day, if you want to go and leave and you don't want to experience Heaven's Word, now the question ends up being, what level of detail and effort do the devs need to make ARR stand out like Heaven's Word and Stormblood and Shadowbringers and Endwalker in terms of that narrative experience? I think they need to do a lot of work. Final Fantasy XIV has been, and I call this kind of built on this Jenga tower, where it's a lot of the things get added on top of it, and it's really a lot of work for them to go back and work on the foundation and the framing of the game. That's where when Yoshi P said that there was no tech debt, I said, pardon? No. we're defining tech debt in different ways. And so that tells me it's probably going to be something that they continue to strive to over the course of time. And I would love, because I loved ARR. Like, one of the things that always like hurts the most is that like ARR was this really great, crazy experience coming from 1.0, but not everybody's going to have Brian's 1.0 to 2.0 experience. And so I can recognize that people are going to be blocked off. The thing that actually I see happen from my personal experience when I helped new players out wasn't that they were struggling with the story, because Chris has developed this really cool feature called the escape key, and he could just blast his way through it. And ultimately, it was like, maybe that quest isn't that important to the overall narrative. If they're not speaking to you audibly, maybe if you want, just skip it and just kind of move towards your goal here. And the fact is that they didn't clear ARR in 40 hours means I think that they're really trying to give it a go, but they just burn themselves out. 40 hours is a lot of time. Most games don't get somebody's 40 hours, but
how many hours a week are you playing games right now, Brian?
I get about 5 to 8 hours per week for video games.
So this would take over a month of your time to get to where they were.
Right.
And you would be totally alone during all of that.
Right. And that's one of the things that it would probably burn me out. Like, if I was not a Final Fantasy fan, if I was not having played through the game originally, because I had more time to play video games like when 2.0 was out. Like, the reality is like I got a lot of things that need my time and attention, and I choose to invest
if I talked you into the game,
yeah,
I can't join you for it in an effective way.
Ooh, that's the one thing that's the fix that I would say.
And when you say, how much further do I have to go? I'm willing to push. I say, don't worry. You're 70% of the way through Realm Reborn. You go, then we can play together? No. Then you start Heavensward. Oh, okay. And then I can play together? No.
That's
and
the
then
biggest
you start
problem.
Stormblood.
Yeah, that's
and then
the
we
biggest
can play together?
problem.
No. And then you start Shadowbringers. And then we can play together? No. And then you start Endwalker. Oh, you're an Endwalker. Yes, but I'm 70 or 100 hours into Endwalker.
Yeah, the ask in terms of the multiplayer side of things, that's why I continue and will continue to advocate, and I think people should make sure they post it on the forums, and any way that you can get Yoshi P the feedback, and any fan Q&A with Yoshi P should be like, is there a way that those single instance player battles you could bring your friends into? Because we asked Yoshi P, he said it wouldn't be that hard. Like, he answered this question for me where I was like, you know, it'd be great as a open world party level sync, so that as I help a young player out who I'm at level cap, they're not, I don't want to go make another character. I'd rather be on my character, would be able to follow them. And so you end up having to run behind them the whole time. You can join party for fates and sync there, but then you have to disband and then going along. And it's like, if they actually worked on the social side, I always said Final Fantasy 14 has a weird issue with the numbers 2 and 3. It works great as a single player game. It works great if you got 4 people, but if you got 2, you and a buddy, you and 2 buddies, you're screwed. You can't bring them in with the duty support. You have to bring in a random at that point, and maybe that's fine, but not everybody actually wants that. And what you end up seeing people do is they'll try and start at the same time. They'll drop party, and they'll go run the dungeons solo, so they don't have to worry about impacting other players. And so that's the overhaul. Like, I don't know how you go through and spend all the time in the quests, the worlds, and lore where you don't end up frustrating the current base, unless you like legitimately have so many more people, but you actually inherently focusing on the ease of letting people play together at different ranges. This would also then apply to some reason that Chris would get value as a level capped character in level syncing and running around in the open world, outside of them just spending time with a friend. And that's the solution that I think Yoshi P needs to implement to really kind of solve this problem. Because the other side of it, like I was saying, is that I see people change their job at level 30 or level 40 all the time.
Sure.
And they start over and they do the same 1 to 40 grind over and over. And then they go, this game really doesn't have much. And it's like, you've only seen to 40. You've spent 300 hours leveling everything to 40. That's awesome that you had fun. Go to 41. Push past that.
You're not even at a cap,
right?
Like,
unlock
we've
flying.
seen they're not,
right.
And this is a real example. We've had people come in and post that they're trying to get them all to a certain point. That point's not even a cap, so they have yet to see a single job in a single version of what its like complete self is. Not even like an old version. They've never made it to completion.
Yeah.
So they're missing all sorts of like off globals and all these things that make the game feel more engaging.
That's why I say, like, the best thing you can do now as a part of all the changes, once you unlock flying, then check out the other classes and jobs. Like, get flying unlocked, because that's going to make your experience with ARR way smoother. And so you'll end up having a better experience to do those things. And so they don't have flying unlocked, and this usually hasn't experienced that. They haven't, and we just talked about it as a part of our New World coverage just a little bit ago in the other video, literally talking about how mounts really kind of have a cost to the game itself, and flying does make you kind of god mode in this game, but it exists. It's not like we're going to sit here and say, hey guys, check this box to say never fly. I'll never fly in this game, etc.
I'm trying to clear Stormblood in 3 days. And so Chris, our mod, is sitting in my party with a flying mount, and he's just getting me cutscene to cutscene to cutscene. And it's cutting all that travel time way down. This is just an incredibly, like, amazingly fast, dense experience, so that I can still do like a collab with you today and all that, and be on pace to clear Stormblood in 3 days. And like, the only way I can do that is if it's mostly MSQ and there's very little travel time. He's also a level 90 in my party, so any open world combat, he's just one-shotting things, and so all the combat's been basically removed from the game. And that's just not scalable. You can't expect everybody to have a level 90 that's willing to effectively get nothing for doing this. He gets nothing. He doesn't get experience. He doesn't get a meaningful amount of currency.
He doesn't mention a video.
Teleports, and that's it. And so, like, I think I don't want them to keep pruning, because I think that a lot of the payoffs that I've been enjoying go away if you start to cut it from 3 mistaken crystals to 1 crystal, and you're always getting exactly the crystal you needed. I think a lot of the payoff is in the anticipation. A lot of the payoff is in, there's been things that when people go watch somebody on YouTube or Twitch, or a friend go through ARR, they see references to stuff that was not mentioned again, or was not mentioned heavily until multiple expansions later. And so when you see names dropped like Belladia and Mach and Allegan and Asian and Omega and Garlean, and you see these dropped very early on, and then you think about what they mean to you post Endwalker. Like, I'm in a weird spot. I haven't done Stormblood. I'm in the middle of Stormblood, and yet I've already done Endwalker. So, like, I know some things from the future. So they drop some language, and I'm like, whoa, I know how that turns out. And that's really exciting. That's what gives this replay value. But the New Game Plus system doesn't offer experience. So it's really hard to want to do the replay, even though it would probably offer some canonical fun. It'd be nice if it offered some account progress as well. And so I think the answer is, don't keep pruning. So do what you can. The duty support system is an amazing love letter to the community. But I would say it's time for a new on-ramp. It's time for something like 7.0, where you can write much denser, you can catch people up, and you can kind of do this previously on. Let me introduce you to the Scions, can say, hey, it's been a while. Let me remind you what my interests are, right? Oh, remember that time we did this? And you say it in a way that is like when you see somebody at a party that you can't remember their name, and your friend can see it on your face, and they come over and they're, aren't you having a good time visiting with Tom? And in your head, you're thinking, Tom, oh, thank God. And so they can do that kind of like writing to kind of catch people up, so that new players and returning players are kind of caught up. And then New Game Plus can be a chance for, great, that was so cool with the Omega stuff. Do we have more Omega lore? Oh, do we? And then it's all there waiting for somebody to have a much deeper kind of origin story type moment, where they can go back and play through these specific chapters to learn more than what the little shortcut kind of told them. And so I think a 7.0 or an 8.0 rework of the new player experience is the more likely, cheaper way to kind of onboard people, so that they can just come play with their friends. Just let people play games, instead of saying, like, you have to like the story and you have to like it now. Because somebody might say, hey, I'd love to like the story on Saturdays when I play games by myself, but on Friday nights I play with my friend. I don't think that's a crazy way to play games. And like, it's not easy to pick somebody up in Final Fantasy and say, okay, but your first Friday with the friends will be in, it's January, so probably like June, maybe September. Like, that's not fine. Let's let people play games together. And if they want to come do the new Algaia stuff, like, oh, but it spoils, just let them have their fun. And then if later they're like, man, I wish I knew more about the 12, very cool. I invite you to go on that journey.
Now, Chris L disagrees that he gets way more than just than just running around. And he enjoys watching your reactions and being able to help you experience that live. So there's a value there. And then Alex says they started the NG Plus to play with a wife. Would be nice if they could just have a button synced down instead of redoing it from a certain point. And that's essentially what we asked Yoshi P that specifically, and he said he didn't think it'd be that difficult. But I think that's probably a backlog item that has yet to be implemented, and that would solve a little bit of the frustration, and then essentially allow them to go into those fights with a friend, and then just like either scale them to we have more people here that increase the life or what have you, or just say, yeah, guess what, you brought a buddy and this is old content, and you burn it down, like,
yep.
we're not going to sit here, or you add difficulties, so it's like, hey, this is where it's going to be. So I think that's essentially be interesting, especially New Game Plus is a really good option, and we'll see. Who knows if our poster here will end up returning to the game at some point. And if they do, I'm sure they'll become one of the people in the category of it gets better. Oh man, because usually what ends up happening is you kind of get over that hurdle, and then you're like, wow, like I'm so glad I stuck with it. And that's a part of the hook. You're like, all right, I'm gonna keep grinding, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you feel satisfied that your investment in that story and the character gets paid off. But Chris, you got any final thoughts before we wrap up today's show?
I think contextually on all of this, I would just say that I don't want to take away the ability for people to enjoy the game from the beginning. And so I don't want to prune that to where that is losing something. I would say that in addition to everybody that did enjoy ARR right from the get-go and enjoyed their whole journey all the way through, in addition to those people, it would be really great if we could get the poster here to also enjoy the game. I think that this is a game that can absolutely be enjoyed by both of those people simultaneously. So any change or any iteration on the game that gets us closer to that future is the one that I want to be a part of. I think Final Fantasy is a beautiful and amazing game. And if somebody knows all the Omega lore and loves the new Omega Ultimate, January 24th, that's awesome. If somebody else watches the Omega Ultimate and goes, so what's the Omega thing? And that's what gets them to go experience the Omega lore, that's awesome also. And so that's where I want to be, is in a world where we can have, there's no wrong way to play if you're not directly hurting somebody else. It's just whatever way is fun for you. That's, I think, the best way to enjoy 14. So anything that gets us there is where I want to go.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to wrap us up for today. Chris is going to continue his journeys over on Twitch. You can check out the pinned comment or the comment and the link in the description if you want to go hang out over on Twitch. We got a big schedule this week, rocking and rolling for 2023. So any and all lurk support that you guys can drop us over on Twitch also is a huge help for the channel as we continue to grow here in 2023. Thanks, guys, for being here. I'm going to end broadcast and wave it out, and we will see you on Friday for our next live show.